At 9 minutes past 2 in the afternoon, the roof of a plane cabin at the edge of a Siberian field folded open, and a Ukrainian OSA drone rose out of it and turned toward the airbase 7 kilometers away. A small, first-person view attack quadcopter, flown by an operator through its own nose camera, carrying a shaped charge and a single memorized target. Ahead of it lay a 5-minute flight and a single Russian bomber that had no idea it was coming. Down on the aprons at Belaya, nothing was reacting. Russian ground crews moved among the parked bombers, Tu-95MS and Tu-22M3, the big strategic aircraft Russia can no longer build, fueling and towing them the way they did every afternoon, as certain as everyone on that base had always been that nothing could reach them this deep inside Russia. They were right about the distance. No drone could fly the 4,000 kilometers from Ukraine. This OSA hadn't. It had been carried most of the way inside a truck and set loose from that cabin 7 kilometers from the fence. Within minutes, those bombers would start to burn. The whole thing was a Ukrainian operation called Spiderweb, and its trick was never to fly to Siberia at all. Instead of sending drones 4,000 kilometers across a defended country, Ukraine's security service had spent months quietly smuggling them in by ground instead, hidden inside trucks and prefabricated cabins, driven deep into Russia and parked within a few kilometers of the bases they were meant to hit. Putting them there had taken more than a year of patience. Using them would take a single afternoon. The cabin at the edge of that field was one of them. It had sat closed for weeks with 14 OSA drones charged and waiting inside until the roof opened on a signal and they lifted off in 2 groups, 6 first, then 8. But the OSAs were only half of it. 35 kilometers away, on an abandoned service track off the highway, a second Ukrainian team had stopped an unmarked cargo van 25 minutes earlier and started unpacking a different weapon. 9 Darts Norda strike drones, fixed wing and 1.5 meters across, each built to fly once and never come back. An OSA carried 1.5 kilograms of explosive. Each Darts carried 6, a heavier, slower burning charge meant to sit inside an airframe and keep burning. The Darts took longer to get ready. Wings fitted and locked, batteries connected, a route loaded into each one. The Darts had much farther to fly than the OSAs, and that was the point. 35 kilometers at their cruising speed came to 19 minutes in the air, against barely 5 for the OSAs coming from 7. So the Darts went up first, well before the cabin roof ever opened, in order to arrive last. By the time the first OSA was climbing over its tree line, the 9 Darts were already out there in the afternoon haze, low and slow, curving in toward Belaya from a completely different direction. Far from both launch sites, somewhere safe, the Ukrainian operators sat watching their screens. Each had been given a single bomber to destroy and had spent months studying it from satellite photos until they knew where it parked and what it looked like from above. Nothing about the attack was left to chance. Every drone had its target chosen long in advance so that when the moment came, it could fly straight in with no time lost searching or second-guessing. Each operator flew 1 drone at the bomber they knew and left the rest of the base to burn on its own. Belaya was not defenseless, and it was not blind. A long-range surveillance radar swept the sky over the region the way it always had, but it had been built to catch aircraft coming in from hundreds of kilometers away, across borders and open country, and nothing like that was coming. The threat was already close, 5 minutes out for the OSAs and 19 for the Darts. Too near and too small for a radar built for the opposite problem. By the time anyone understood what was on the screens, the only thing left to stop it was whatever the base itself could point at the sky. At 2:14, the first 6 OSAs reached the base and split apart. 2 peeled off toward the control tower. The other 4 went straight for the one machine built to stop exactly this kind of attack. A Pantsir, The truck-mounted air defense system sitting out on the field with its radar turning, two 30mm cannons, and a rack of ready missiles. On paper, a low, slow, close-in target was precisely what it was made to kill. The Pantsir's radar found the 4 OSAs easily enough. The problem was everything after that. 4 targets at once was exactly its limit, so the 2 OSAs heading for the tower slipped away untouched. And the 4 it did track came in so slowly and so small that the crew hesitated over whether they were even a threat. Hesitated just long enough to matter. By the time they committed, the OSAs were already inside 1.5 kilometers, closer than the missiles could even arm, which left nothing but the cannons. At 300 meters, an OSA doing 80 kilometers an hour is 13 seconds from the gun, and in those seconds, the cannons tore 2 of the 4 out of the sky. But the third reached the Pantsir's radar dish before the barrels could swing onto it, and the 4th came in flat and low and flew straight into the missile rack. The rack went up. One canister split, set off the ones beside it, and the truck that was supposed to protect Belaya turned into a fire, flinging its own missiles across the apron. Its radar and guns were gone inside a minute, and it had killed 2 OSAs doing it. The 2 OSAs sent for the tower struck a heartbeat later. Not enough explosive to bring the structure down, but enough to gut the antennas and the upper floor and leave the tower standing there, deaf, with no way to coordinate anything at the exact moment the base needed it most. The other 8 OSAs had lifted out of that same cabin 75 seconds behind the first 6 and flown the same short run, so they crossed the fence just as the opening wave finished gutting the Pantsir and blinding the tower. These 8 had no interest in either. They were after 4 Tu-22 M3 bombers parked in a neat row, Soviet-era supersonic missile carriers that no factory builds anymore. And they came in pairs, 2 OSAs to each bomber, so that if one was stopped, the other would still get through. They ran straight into what was left of the base's defenses. A Russian electronic warfare team was sweeping for the radio links between the OSAs and their operators far away, and it managed to jam one, a single video feed that froze in mid-flight. It didn't bring the drone down. These OSAs had more than one channel to stay connected, so the link itself held. But an FPV drone is flown by watching that video, and with the picture frozen, the operator was suddenly steering blind. The OSA just kept going straight ahead, and at 80 kilometers an hour, a drone covers 220 meters in the 10 seconds it takes a man to realize his screen has died. Far enough that this one flew past its Tu-22 M3 and into empty concrete, while its partner went in and hit. The last real obstacle was the reserve, a Tor, a tracked launcher carrying 16 missiles and able to engage 4 targets at a time. 4 at a time, against 8. It fired, took 2 OSAs out of the air, and a Russian security detail on the ground shot a third down with rifles as it crossed low over them. That was 3 OSAs gone, on top of the one the jamming had blinded, and the remaining 4, one for each bomber, kept coming. For the 4 operators still flying, the last few seconds were identical on every screen. A gray feed, a bomber swelling until it filled the frame, and the weak point each had spent months learning to find. A fuel tank, the side where the missiles hang, the avionics behind the cockpit. One after another, the feeds turned to static. 1.5 kilograms of explosive cannot tear a bomber apart from the outside, but it doesn't need to. It punches through the skin and burns inside, in the fuel and the wiring, and that is what it did 4 times over. 4 Tu-22 M3s stood burning from the inside out, faster than any foam sprayed from the outside could reach. By now, the eastern side of the field was nothing but smoke, heat, and noise. And burning bombers were exactly what the attack was counting on. Every fire truck and security vehicle on the base raced toward that line of Tu-22 M3s, because that was where the fire was. The dry grass at the edge of the concrete caught. Smoke rolled across the taxiways, and the Tor kept its radar fixed on the patch of sky the OSAs had come from, which meant that 3 more bombers, sitting quietly on the far side of the field, had almost no one left watching them. Those 3 were Tu-95MS, enormous 4-engine turboprops, older than the men who flew them. The kind of strategic bomber Russia simply cannot replace, and the darts, already closing on them, had been in the air the whole time. The 9 darts, launched first from 35 kilometers out, were arriving last, curving in low over the far aprons from a direction no one was watching, about 2 minutes behind the OSAs and completely separate from them. The Tor tried to turn and meet them. Through the smoke, a new kind of contact crossed its screen. Bigger, slower, shaped wrong. But the launcher still had only 4 channels and had been overwhelmed since the first wave hit, and all it managed was to knock down 2 of the darts, while the electronic warfare team pushed a 3rd off its line into open ground. That still left 6, exactly 2 for each of the 3 Tu-95s, with the fire crews and guns a full runway away and hemmed in by their own trucks and smoke, unable to get near in time. The same smoke that had hidden the darts on the way in now hid the bombers underneath it, so the darts stopped hunting for a precise aim point and simply took the largest thing in front of them, the vast wings, the long fuselage, and drove 6 kilograms of fire into it. On the operator's screens, the last frames were all the same, a wall of wing, 4 huge propellers, and then nothing. The first Tu-95 took 1 darts in the wing root and another in the fuselage, and its fuel caught and ran the fire out along the wing. The second took hits in the fuel system and the avionics, and simply would not stop burning. The third took 2 darts almost together, 1 in each wing, and went up in a single column of fire that could be seen from the far end of the base. When the smoke finally cleared, 7 bombers were gone, 4 Tu-22M3s and 3 Tu-95s, burned down to their frames on their own aprons, next to a wrecked air defense truck and a control tower gone dark. The drones that did all this had each cost about the price of a used car. The OSAs roughly that, the darts even less. What they destroyed, Russia counts not in money, but in decades, the last survivors of a bomber fleet it no longer knows how to build. And none of it happened because Belaya's defenses were weak. The Pantsir fired, the Tor fired, the electronic warfare team and the riflemen fired, and between them, they stopped 9 of the 23 drones before they ever reached a target. The base lost anyway because every layer of that defense had been built and aimed at a threat coming from far away, across a border, high and fast, with time to see it and time to react. This attack never came from far away. It had been sitting a few kilometers from the runway the whole time, in a shed and a parked van, and the 4,000 kilometers that were supposed to keep Belaya safe had quietly stopped mattering the moment those trucks crossed the border. Somewhere in Russia right now, another shed is sitting closed at the edge of a field, its drones charged and its roof waiting for a signal. The distance was never the defense. Those same trucks can park outside any base in the country.